Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here. Long time no see. Hope everyone's doing well. I know I haven't really been around as much, more so really on YouTube in the past, over the past month or so, month and a half, I guess. The Race to the World First is obviously over. Had a great time casting that. If guys you went around, I did end up casting that for Limit. Complexity Limit did indeed win the Race to the World First, which was pretty awesome. I returned home and quickly began actual progression with my own guild, Temerity, on Hyjal, and I can thankfully say the progression did indeed end last Sunday? Yeah, Sunday. With Mythic N'Zoth dying, getting Hall of Fame, everything's good to go there. So, things are more so falling back into place. Obviously, we have certain things going on transpiring currently that I don't really want to talk about here, because this is more of a WoW-based channel, but you get what I'm saying. Regardless, though, I appreciate you guys bearing with me, getting back to more YouTube content coming on the line. I've got a lot of videos planned for us. Obviously here, starting the video off on a bit of a different note. I have a new camera. Yes, I also have gray hair. I'm sure you're going to point that out. Everything else here is the actual headset dent. There you go. Perfect. Anyways, boys, now that BFA is essentially over, at least for me, obviously some guilds are still progressing a bit here and there, I wanted to take the time to talk about the systems in BFA, which I want to talk about them, mainly being Azeroth, Essences, and Corruption. How I feel they initially were, how they performed over the course of the expansion, I guess some longer than others, shorter than others, and in the end, how I feel they are currently as a whole, and how those systems can potentially and or hopefully, maybe, possibly be implemented into Shadowlands, depending on what's going on. Now, I don't really want to spend a whole lot of time talking about Azeroth gear, because realistically, Azeroth really hasn't been, it's been impactful, but the system hasn't really been changed a whole lot truly since Battle of Dazar'alor. We initially saw in early alpha and beta issues with Azeroth being, hey, gear's not tradable, hey, gear's finally tradable, but now it's hard to acquire the right Azeroth traits, and Blizzard sort of answered that in a sense coming into BOD. In Uldir, our first tier, we actually had Azeroth being tradable, and we had obviously some traits on gear being better than others, but the main issue was that it was really hard to acquire that right piece of gear that had that right trait on it. Meaning, hey, Warlocks, if you're playing Affliction in Uldir, you really wanted a Racking Brilliance piece. If you're playing Destro, you're trying Stack Crushing Chaos. And I really do like the overall theme of Re-Origination Array. It was a subtle yet powerful increasing, I guess, subtle yet powerful, well, I'll say ever increasing, a trait that increased in power over the course of 10 weeks, I believe it was 10 weeks, which acted as a subtle nerf to content, while also making your character, I guess your character overall, feel a bit more powerful. And it also encouraged, you know, re-clearing bosses and things of the sort, which I think is needed for, not necessarily needed, but it helps alleviate and maybe ease the pain of progression for guilds that aren't going for Hall of Fame, or just guilds that progress slower than others. Having Re-Origination Array around was really nice. Now, obviously, you can sort of compare that to guilds progressing and just reacquiring gear every single week through a re-clear, but having that around was nice. I think it really added a lot to Uldir and Azeroth as a whole. And Blizzard did indeed stick with the seasonal slash tier-themed Azeroth trait every single tier. I guess barring Crucible Storms in a sense, but that was something in itself. And I think overall that played out really well. We did see Azeroth gear in BOD end up having a second row of main traits in an attempt to alleviate the issue of players not being able to acquire the trait they wanted, mainly being, if we're referencing Uldir again, Racking Brilliance for Aflocks, Crashing Chaos for Destro Locks, things like that. But what it really did was make it so that players look for that great trait in conjunction with a second great trait. And that piece was still the best piece they wanted, and everything else was like, okay, it's fine, I'll take it if I get it early on for progression, but I'm going to end up scrapping it down or not wearing it really, which was basically the same place that you were in Uldir and before. And obviously the Residium vendor was added in, which helped alleviate that issue a bit more. But overall, it was still like, hey, there's one best piece here, this is what we're looking for. That's pretty much it. Obviously, like the Treacherous Covenant traits, and once again, the tier-themed Azeroth traits of the expansion felt really good. For each tier, I'm sorry. Felt really good. But there was no Re-Origination Array-esque, I guess, kind of trait, which really wasn't any first to the actual expansion, which was a bit disappointing to me, in a sense. But one of the main things is that outside of like BOD, Azeroth really wasn't touched a whole lot. In 8.2, we got Essences, which was in conjunction with Eternal Palace. And since then, it really sort of seems like Blizzard feels I guess felt and or feels, I don't speak for Blizzard or anything like that, that Azeroth probably wasn't as much of a success as they wanted, and it's probably in a good enough place right now where they can just sort of leave it and focus on other systems, being Essences and then Corruption, which we have now. Overall, at this point, I feel Azeroth, it was fun to explore, and it was indeed semi-similar to how Legion Legendaries felt, or more so artifact weapons. But overall, I feel like I'm pretty happy leaving Azeroth gear behind as a whole, heading into Shadowlands. Obviously, there could be a similar system in Shadowlands. I think they're going to be more so based off Essences and Corruption, which we'll get to here in a little bit. But overall, I don't think it was a complete failure. I just feel more so that there was just a bit too much RNG with it, which you'll see there's a trend here through most of this video. The initial RNG of Azeroth coupled with just still striving for one or two really specific pieces towards the end of a tier, every single tier, really, I think, soured the taste of Azeroth to a lot of players. And I don't think in its current tier, Ny'alotha, adding 10 extra eye levels to the Carapace and N'Zoth and actual N'Zoth Azeroth was a good call. I think it makes sense. I think bosses should be a bit more rewarding towards the end of the tier, item level wise, but overall, I feel like it creates this odd discrepancy where, like, this piece of gear isn't necessarily my best traits, but 10 eye levels higher. And obviously there's that split between Mythic Plus and the Mythic rating community that, you have to do, in a sense. There's always an argument like, you have to do high-end rating to do high-end Mythic Plus, because certain trinkets, certain pieces of gear are gated behind that. And it goes both ways. And also you have to throw PvP in there too, but there's always going to be that. And I just felt overall like I don't really think it's cool, and I like it, but I don't really think the Azeroth should have had the extra 10 eye levels on it on Carapace and actual N'Zoth. Talking Essences, though, I do think overall Essences were probably the best system, the most polished system to come out of Battle for Azeroth. And I know everybody is not a huge fan. They're more happy about Essences in the current state that they are now, but hear me out. If Essences as a whole, I think, are really, really good. It's a really solid fundamental system. You have some things that are gated behind a bit of progress, whether it's in Mythic Plus, baseline dungeons, raiding, things like that. And we've seen Condensed Life Force in Eternal Palace being gated behind certain boss kills with your reliquaries. And I believe it's Formless Void, I believe, in Ny'alotha with the Ny'alothian text. It drops off 3 bosses, I believe. I could be wrong there, but you know what I'm saying. They're gated behind certain aspects of the game that it actually actively keeps you engaged in the game in current content. The issue that everybody has with Essences, or I guess had with Essences, was the fact that they weren't account wide. Now, obviously, I think having them go account wide before 8.3 dropped would probably have been a better idea overall. I will say that I was not a huge fan of them not being account wide, obviously, but at the same time, I wasn't really complaining about it. I wasn't happy with it. And if somebody asked me on stream, hey, what do you think about this? I'd say I think it should be account wide. But I was also grinding them out on my alts at the same time. I wasn't just sitting on my hands complaining every day. I'm not saying you guys were. I'm just saying in general that I wasn't just sitting there every day complaining about it. I wasn't very happy with it. I would, express my disappointment with it not being account wide. But I was grinding Condensed Life Force on alts, VOP, Crucible of Flame. I guess not much of a grind there. But other Essences that had a bit of time to grind out, I was grinding them to prepare myself for if they never went account wide, I'd still have them. Once again, and if you look at Essence as a whole, I think they're widely accepted as a good system. They're customizable. You can change them for certain fights. Maybe I want to play Focusing Iris here on a more single target fight, but when it comes to a fight like Drestagath, or a fight where I can't really maintain that max 10 stack of Iris, I'll change to this. So this has a better, more impactful. This is more impactful in this fight, in this scenario. That's a part of the game that I really like. I think a lot of players really like that little min-maxing that you can do with different major and minor combinations. And it's really cool towards the end of a tier when bosses start dying so quickly, or certain things start happening on certain bosses. You see like these niche little builds emerge that are running like a CD reduction trait with a VOP, like an Azeroth trait with VOP minor to give you 1 full extra CD right before the boss dies. That's cool. Those are the tiny little subtle interactions and optimizations I think the player base likes, and it keeps farm. And I guess farm, which we're probably going to have a lot of over the next few months until Shadowlands drops, interesting. I think essences overall are a really, really good system, and I do hope to see, whether they go account-wide or not, I do hope to see something similar heading into Shadowlands. Probably, I think having certain things gated behind content within reason, having them be acquired through dungeons raids, it's good. I think moving forward, they should have something similar like that in place, if at all possible. The big thing that I want to talk about, though, more so, that's basically at the forefront of almost every discussion at this current point, is corruption. There's not, I guess more so there wasn't really a whole lot of RNG in acquiring essences. As a whole, you knew what you had to do. You had to go here and farm this up. You had to run a 10 key or higher for 3 weeks in a row to get 15 focused life animas, or whatever they're called, for your rank 3 iris or tank essence, whatever they are. When it comes to corruption, and I want to note that I'm making this video post-vision, guaranteed corruption loot at the end changes, things like that. There's just too much RNG. There's too much RNG in a sense in Azeroth, within reason, more so drops and not being able to trade it early on, which changed a bit, but there's just way too much RNG in corruption, which was one of the main reasons as to why the player base really didn't want Warforging and Titan Forging to be around. I think overall that when it comes to Warforging and Titan Forging, if they had it where Warforging was a set +5 eye levels, an item dropped and it had 5 extra eye levels on it, and that's it, that'd be fine. And if it Titan Forge or Thunder Forge or whatever you want to call it, Shadow Forge for Shadowlands, hey, there you go, Shadow Forge. And it was a baseline like 10 or 11 eye level increase, and it couldn't go 40, 50 eye levels ahead. A baseline 10 or 11, that's solid. That's fine. That works. It's a bit of RNG, but it's not somebody walking into LFR and getting a mythic eye level trinket off of Unat, where Method and other guilds are wiping hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times on a boss. It's extremely difficult and probably a bit overtuned at the time to get a trinket they could have gotten out of LFR with great luck. Corruption feels like that, but just worse in a sense. And I don't want this to seem like it's a video harping on corruption or Blizzard as a whole, because it's not. I love this game. I played this game for 12 years. If anything, it's a positive critique in a sense. I think as a whole, like I said, essences are really good. Azeroth might have missed the mark a little bit, but the thing about missing the mark or systems failing, it's even if Azeroth overall is considered a failure as a whole for BFA, it still gives Blizzard developers a whole lot that you can take away from it. Okay, why didn't this work out? What could we have done differently? How can we implement a similar system if we're thinking about it in Shadowlands, and how can we make it an actual success? That's big. That's important. Looking at corruption, it just feels like, and I'll be showing a few damage meters on the screen here in a second or two, over the course of expansion with Azeroth, into essences, into you always have your damage based effects and trinkets and random procs, set bonuses, things like that, even though Tira's gone, into corruption. Our characters overall as a whole have just lost, to me, our characters feel weak. If you look at a damage meter here, I'll show on the screen, there is a large damage-based effects make up a large portion of our damage right now, and it depends which setting you're in. Sometimes it's Mythic Plus, sometimes it's rating. Once again, RNG is RNG. There's RNG in getting a piece of gear to drop, having it be corrupted. Then there's RNG getting the right trait, the right corrupted effect. That's 2 tiers. Then it has to be the right tier of corruption, which is 3, and then when you get all 3, you have to bring it into the right scenario and have it proc enough, or even more so than it should, because it is RPPM in a sense, to the point where your damage is vastly inflated by it, and that's how you rank 1 parse. There's not really, within reason obviously, right? There's not really that separation of skill anymore. When you're looking at a fight with 2, we were talking about this in Guild Discord I think like 2 weeks ago, we have 2 very skilled Demon Hunters in Guild. Very similar gear. I believe they were wearing about the same corruption as well, and when it came to one fight, I believe there was like a massive difference, and not a big difference in their overall damage. And if you looked at the meters, we opened up logs afterwards. It was just corruption procs. They were both wearing the same thing. One just procced a lot more, or probably procced at the right time, like on Hive Mind, where one didn't proc at all or proc at the wrong time. And that's just, there's no separation of skill there, really. It's just they're both great players. They both know what they need to wear. They both have the right corruption. You're good to go. And one just got lucky and one just didn't. That's frustrating. That's not really where you want to be as far as just playing this game goes. It's frustrating. I will say that it's happened to me a few times, and there are other sources of corruption you can wear. Obviously, you don't have to wear Twilight Devastation, Infinite Stars. We can meme about Echoing Void, but there are like the passive corruption-based effects, like Expedient, Masterful, that give a bonus amount of haste, mastery, versatility, or crit, and that gives you a bit more smoothing when it comes to overall damage going to be dealt in the fight. But there are times when I actually wore an Infinite Stars piece on Mythic N'alotha prog because my corruption is terrible, and there were times going into the first burn I had 7-8 stacks on N'alotha. N'alotha is not your main target in the first phase of that fight, and there were times I went in and I had literally 0. That kind of RNG is super impactful. There are times where you'll stack stars to 10 a minute into the fight, and there are times you'll stack stars to 2 5 minutes into the fight. That's the kind of RNG that's not really exciting. Looking at corruption-based effects, essences, Azerite, everything else that is not tied to your character's overall toolkit and raw power, it just feels like it's power that's not ours. It feels like our character overall as a whole is weak, and you're more so just being held up by corrupted effects, essences, other things along those lines, and long term, I don't think that's very good for the game. Obviously, yes, corruption is this is the very first iteration of a system like corruption, a kiss curse effect system, and for the most part, I think corruption is a very good system. I'll get more into that in a minute here. I think it's a good system. I like the kiss curse effects, the systems. I think that if it was a bit different, it would be widely accepted as a very good system. Similar to how essences are, it's just that I think Blizzard missed the mark a bit when it comes to the excessive amounts of RNG that corruption has. However, once again, like I mentioned, just because a system missed the mark or is not as widely accepted as they might have initially intended, they can very easily just look at that system and say, hey, this is what people really liked. This is what worked out well. This is what people didn't like. This is what didn't work out very well. And they can build upon that or remove certain things from that, but building upon the system as a whole, heading into the next expansion, the next patch, and hopefully improve it, make it better there. As far as like the RNG of corruption goes, once again, I personally feel there's just too much. There's straight up too much. I feel like if there was... Obviously, like I said, I'm making this video post-vision, guaranteed corrupted gear dropping. At this point, every single vision you run, as long as you acquire a piece of gear at the end, whether it's a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0 mass, clear, whatever other options you can get gear from, if it drops, it's going to be corrupted. The issue there is, like, and the same for the Mythic Plus chest, unless you have a trinket drop. Thankfully, I haven't had that yet. But what I'm getting at is here, even if that piece is guaranteed to corrupt, it still has to drop. It has to corrupt the right corruption effect, because just similar to how essences are in Azerite and gear in general, welcome to WoW, there are certain traits, certain corrupted effects that are better for other specs, other classes than others. Corruption at this point is, we have rank 15 cloaks if you've been keeping up with your vision things every week. You're looking for those, obviously those big pieces, the Expedient 3 pieces, the Void Ritual pieces, the pieces you really want for your class and your spec. There's also pieces that you want to sort of fill holes with. Gushing Wounds is a great example. Gushing Wounds, pound for pound, is the best damage-based corrupt effect in-game. It's a very low amount of corruption and deals a very large amount of damage. Over the course of Mythic Plus run, Gushing Wounds will deal 3 to 5% of my damage over the whole run, which is crazy because Gushing Wound is a dot that goes on your target, and in Mythic Plus there's a lot of targets which you're hitting and they're dying a good portion of the time when the dot is still ticking. So pound for pound, Gushing Wounds, smaller 10, 15 corruption-based effects, what you're after. But you still have to have that piece drop with the right corruption on it, and then realistically the right corruption level, which is frustrating in itself. I feel like a much better... I feel if corruption had one or two tiers instead of 3, it would remove a whole lot of the RNG when it comes to just acquiring pieces. Realistically, 1 tier I think is probably a pretty good call. I think, like, once again, this is the very first iteration of corruption they've done, and for a kiss curse system, I think overall they've hit the mark pretty well. I think there's too much RNG. Having 1 tier, like, it's only Expedient, and it goes, I think it's, what is it, like, it's 612, It's 6, 9, 12, 6%, 9%, and 12%. There should just be one baseline. You get an expedient corrupted piece, it's 10%, 20 corruption. That's it. And they have varying corruption levels, like ratings for different pieces. You can make sets relevant, worthwhile, and go from there. It's so hard to min-max everything to this point with corruption. And obviously, reforging is not in game. Nothing in game really allows you to play with corruption or corrupted effects outside of just getting more pieces, which is tough, you know. So I think as far as corruption goes, having the guaranteed pieces in the game is solid. I just think if moving forward into Shadowlands, if they really truly want to elaborate more upon a Kiss Curse system, which I think they should, I really do. Kiss Curse systems allow, they put a lot of decisions in the player's hand. Hey, what kind of fight is this? Is this a fight like Mythic Raw Den, where there's a lot of hectic mechanics going on? It's going to be a sub 5-minute fight in progression. I think we killed it in 3.5 minutes, something last week. It's going to be a really fast fight. I might be off there timing-wise, too. Maybe. I don't know. I'll have to look back at logs. But it's going to be a really fast fight. Do I want to play... Is a tight DPS check? Can I play above 39 corruption? You're probably not going to 60, unless you're a tank. And even if that's still a sketch. But do I want to play 49? 59 corruption, okay? What can I play? What pieces do I have? It puts the choice in the player's hands versus a fight like Il'gynoth. Like, I'm not playing anything above 39 corruption on Il'gynoth prog. You get a bad thing from beyond spawning you, you die, the raid dies. I like those systems. I like the systems that reward you for playing in a way that is not necessarily the way you normally play, but you also have to take into account the negative effects, the slow, the tentacle, the thing from beyond, everything. It really adds a lot more depth to the game. So I think overall as a whole, corruption is a good system. I really do. I just think that if they port over a similar system to Shadowlands, it just needs to be reeled in a bit. The RNG needs to be removed in a sense. I think, like, there needs to be guaranteed sources of corruption or guaranteed sources of Shadowlands, whatever it's called, if they do that, which there are now. I think the vision change was good. I think it was probably... It's a lot. Injecting 7 guaranteed corrupting pieces into the player base on every single player every week, if you're running all your visions, is big. And I think it's more than 7. But regardless, I think removing the 3 tiers of Kiss Curse effects per each actual raw effect is worthwhile. Just give us one. Give us one. It's still really interesting to the players as a whole. You can still stack them. You can still play more than 1 Gushing Wounds piece. You can play 2. You can play 3. Shout out to THD. Complexity limit. It was 484 eye level. Day 4, the Race to World verse. It's got so many expedient pieces I can't even count. You can still stack them, and it's still really fun. It's really exciting. I think it's more rewarding overall. I know for a fact if I open a 450 pair of bracers that have expedient 1 on them, that's awesome. It's expedient, but at the same time, it's not expedient 2, and it's not expedient 3. And then it's like, well, I have a 430 pair of bracers with expedient 2 on them. Which one's better? And with bracers being such a low like main stat, secondary stat contributor, it just snowballs and snowballs and snowballs. But overall, I like the choices that corruption in similar systems provide. Once again, you have to make that choice. Do you want to play sub 39 corruption? Can I get away with 59? What do I need to do here? Because I know for a fact, like, there was only a few players playing above 39 corruption on Mythic Ny'alotha, and if I had died to a thing from beyond on Ny'alotha, I probably would have gotten chewed out. I know Blizzard wants us to continually be chasing that carrot on a stick, within reason, right? They want to keep the players engaged in current content, which I think is a good idea. It's just, it gets to a point where, like, the donkey's chasing that carrot on a stick. At some point, he just falls over and dies, man. Like, he's got no energy left. I'm not saying I'm there. I'm just saying, like, it gets to a point where you're just like, you know, this is... I enjoy chasing corruption. I enjoy things, but progression's over. And I'm just sort of down to chill. And I won't do dailies every day for visions and extra essences. I'll do what I can when I can. I do think, though, that the sockets, being able to socket your gear with the currency, I think it's coalescing visions from actual visions, is really good. That's another really good change that they've done, and I'd love to see that implemented further in Shadowlands. Obviously, hey, I'd love to see blacksmithing and things become relevant again and be able to socket gear on your own, but I think that's really good, because sockets, once again, are also RNG, which I don't like. I think predetermined sockets should be a thing on gear, but once again, I'm probably just an old man. I live in the past in BC Wrath days. Either way, that system keeps players actively engaged in current content, which that content also rewards corrupted gear now because visions and it's guaranteed. while not making it seem like you have to do it every single day. Because at a certain point, you'll reach a cap on gems, and hey, you'll have some extra currency floating around, and hey, a piece dropped, I'll throw a hole into it, maybe I gotta grind a few more at a certain point. It's not overbearing. It's not to the point where, like, hey, if I miss this thing, I could be missing out on power for progression or for whatever. That's like a solid middle ground, I feel, to the long-term grind. So, sort of summarizing this video overall, I've been meaning to make this video for a while. I know it's been like a half hour, probably even more at this point, just rant talk. I hope you guys have enjoyed the content on the screen and things while I've been doing it. I think overall, BFA, I think everybody, including Blizzard, can probably accept that BFA has not been their best expansion. However, I think BFA has been a really good expansion, almost to the level of Legion when it comes to actual systems being implemented and being accepted, or very close to being accepted, as really good systems overall. Essences were really good. I'd be surprised if we don't see something similar to Essences, whether it's like, I don't think it's going to be gated behind your neck, but something similar to Essences that you acquire over the course of, you know, dungeons and raids and things like that in Shadowlands. Corruption, more so Kiss Curse effects. I'd be very surprised if we don't see something like that in Shadowlands, hopefully with much less RNG on them. I think at the point we're at now, if we had guaranteed corruption from Visions week 1, week 2, people would love the system, because within reason, right? Everybody gets really unlucky. Hey, look at me, I wore Infinite Stars and Azeroth. But within reason, everybody would like a lot more because it had the pieces that they want. It's 7, 8, 9, 10 pieces of extra gear every single week, literally guaranteed corruption. And long term, Blizzard can take that and extrapolate that out and realize, hey man, this is probably what we should do. There should be more guaranteed sources of corruption, more guaranteed curses or sources of Kiss Curse effects in Shadowlands. Overall, I think BFA has been a success, and I really just hope that they take player feedback and things into account and can move forward with some really, really strong systems heading into Shadowlands. Once again, dudes, thanks for watching. I know this video is a bit longer than most of my videos and not really as warlocky as normal. I've wanted to make this video for a while, just giving feedback, raw feedback on BFA, on systems that have been here. There wasn't really a whole lot I was working off of. There was no script or voiceover here. It's really just me talking about how I feel systems have worked. So hopefully you guys sort of took something away from this, hopefully. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys think about the Azerite Essences corruption and what your hopes are for Shadowlands. I'm really interested to hear and see, as we get closer and closer to Alpha and Beta dropping, what you guys are really looking for, what you want to see. Do you like corruption? Were Essences what you actually really like? Did you hate them regardless? How did Azerite feel? I mean, I can tell you personally that I'm pretty excited for a lot of the potential for a lot of returning warlock abilities. I mean, and just abilities in general. You know, some of them are pretty cool. Some of the ones they talked about at BlizzCon, though, probably won't be used as much as players think. They're cool, but they're semi-cosmetic. I'm hoping for some pretty impactful abilities to return, as well as systems. Hey, I wouldn't mind having mana. I think mana management is a big thing that we should have back. I really do. In an MMORPG, I think you should have to manage your mana. And DPS, you have to make that decision at times. Do you want a health pot? Do you want a mana pot here? I think it's relevant. Adds another level to the game. But that's the video for another time. Dudes, if you enjoyed the video, feel free to smash the like, share, subscribe buttons. It helps out a lot. Links to my Twitter, Twitch, Discord down below. If you want to follow me on Twitch or swing by any stream, I stream 5 to 6 days a week, typically Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and or Sunday. Temerity main raids Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday, 11 p.m. to 3 a.m. Eastern, 8 to midnight Pacific. We're pretty much going to be on a 2-night-a-week raid schedule, I'm sure, at this point. Probably Wednesday and Thursday. We'll go from there. I appreciate you guys watching the video once again. Any questions, let me know in the comment section below. I'll be sure to get back to you. My week goals and profiles are available on Twitch as well. If you want to hop over there and grab them, !WA in chat, or hop in the community Discord. There's a link down below, and they're all in there for you guys as well. Thanks so much, dudes. I appreciate it. I will see you all on stream and hopefully hear a lot more in the very near future. Peace.